Tempest Rising is finally out, and before the game even dropped, I decided that I wanted to do it deathless. And it was a bad decision. This game is absolutely punishingly difficult. Units die fast, counters are hard, and the insane difficulty is beyond anything brutal StarCraft 2 throws at you. So welcome to the story that is the eternal pain of trying to beat Tempest Rising without losing a unit. We're starting off with the GDF campaign, hoping that the slower tutorialization start will make this campaign a bit more approachable. We begin with just a few field scouts, and proceed to almost lose one in the very first fight. Just like most RTS, basic infantry are not something that we want to build in a deathless run. Not only are they bad, but they're an active liability, shards of glass that the game loves starting us out with very often. Fortunately, after clearing a few groups of enemies, we are reinforced with drone operators. And anybody that's played Tempest Rising knows that these guys are the core unit that makes the GDF faction cook. Their drones deal fantastic damage, they fly, and oh no. Drones, one of the most defining features of the GDF, get one-shot by almost anything. So, welcome to Tempest Rising Deathless, where not only are the enemies incredibly powerful, but we can't use a third of the faction's units because they spam out drones. After we slowly clear a few Dynasty forces, the reinforcements arrive, including an elite riot medic who can heal, which is nice. What isn't nice is the absolute suffering that comes next. There's a small little event that introduces our next unit, the Grenadier. During this cutscene, our new units go in and attack a big squad of Dynasty infantry. It's supposed to show off the Grenadier's sweet area damage power, but these dinguses charge straight into the enemy and get absolutely vaporized, and the trigger range for this cutscene is quite far. On top of that, the Grenadiers are in the opposite side from us and can't be controlled until we hit this circle area. And a reinforcement enemy wave comes in from the side. I spent over 45 minutes on this single section of mission number 1, trying to find an answer to my dumb Grenadiers moving themselves into the enemy's doom force. Eventually, what I figured out is that if I take this long path around with the riot medic, I could attack the group of enemies before the cutscene triggers. This aggroes them and a chunk on the left as well. Once the cutscene happens, there's not nearly as many enemies near the Grenadiers. They take a lot less damage, and the medic can then charge into the capture circle. Then I can pull all the Grenadiers back while slowly blasting the chaser forces, all while monitoring the medic's HP and escaping him to the high ground right before he dies. The only reason I was able to do this at all is because Tempest Rising did something I've never seen in the history of video games. They made a medic that can heal itself, which is super nifty. Nonetheless, it was on the razor's edge for the entire time, and took over 20 attempts to get right, and that was after I figured out the strategy. Great, so we're done with mission number 1, right? Tempest Rising missions are incredibly long. Unlike most of my previous Deathless runs, we don't have to solve 1 or 2 major problems per mission, but a series of 6 or 7. So, welcome to the Hill of Death. There are just a million billion enemies at the bottom of this hill. To clear them out takes a variety of body pulling, shooting nearby objects to aggro, and abusing high ground vision to slowly slice them into smaller, more manageable groups. Unfortunately, as my drone operators are unusable, the field scout infantry are made of paper, and the Grenadiers have incredibly short range, every fight is an immense risk. But once the Hill of Pain is secured, we get the MCV that we can deploy into a base, and finally, the macro portion of the mission starts. Also known as the part where the mission gets hard. Once we establish a base, the enemy wakes up and starts flooding across the Bridge of Death with 1 million people. This is what it looks like in a normal playthrough. Dynasty infantry does a lot of damage, and the attack waves are infinite until we can finally build up and push them back. Our only reprieve is a bonus objective, that once we've destroyed all the SAM sites on the map, we get an airstrike. But nonetheless, this is an endgame level series of attacks on mission number 1. So you know what? Let's just not do it. Instead of following the mission objectives and deploying the MCV into a construction yard and building up, I deploy its treads onto my opponent's face. MCVs can crush infantry and smaller tanks. They're immensely bulky, and as long as I don't deploy, the enemy AI doesn't activate and rebuild. So finally, after well over an hour of trial and error on this mission, I can get some drone operators to this corner and slowly destroy the enemy construction yard to end the first mission with 0 units lost. Only to learn that there's no fun allowed in Tempest Rising land. Apparently the game's meta progression that takes the form of armory and doctrine points don't get awarded unless the main objectives are finished. And this run is not possible without them, so when I didn't deploy that construction yard and didn't finish the main objective, The game just didn't give me the points. So I do it again, this time crushing everything with the MCV, clearing all of the enemies out, morphing it into a low HP, literally on fire construction yard to make the game happy, learn how to make a barracks, harvest some money and tech up, and finally blow up the Dynasty construction yard a second time, to once again beat the mission without losing unit, but this time according to the game's will so I can actually get my points. This is gonna be a long run. Moving on to mission 2, the pain is over for a bit. The Hornet's nest is pretty straightforward. Bring a small group to an allied base, get control, and then blow up an enemy. To do so, we get the Riot Van, an anti-infantry transport that is literally the most important unit in this run. After blasting through the first section and grabbing a base, we're off to pick up some of the money crates scattered around the map. These are a big source of early game advantage in any mission that provides them. Getting a critical mass of firepower and durability out early is integral to the Deathless experience, so finding money crates and selling off non-essential infrastructure are the keys to survival. More bases are also very important. The support beacon power summons a time duration structure that provides build radius around it. This is how the GDF expands. This is particularly important in the campaign, as the MCV can often not pack up and move, in what I assume is an attempt to stop cheese. Traditionally in my Deathless runs, time life structures are something that I would count as a loss when they expire. However, this has consistently been the #1 thing that people point out as silly overkill in the rules, so I'm going to allow time structures such as the beacon, with the caveat that they must naturally expire. If they're killed off before that, it still counts as a loss. This means I can't spam them in the opponent's face carelessly, but I can actually expand ever. With my new expansion, structures sold off, and money from the boxes, I make 11 engineers and load them into my vans. Engineers can repair vehicles and will repair anything they're garrisoned into from the inside. Each riot van can hold 6 engineers and has significantly more durability than most GDF units, making it an excellent tank against anything besides enemy tanks. As a result, a couple tanky riot vans are going to be in the front of my army a lot of the time. They're not invulnerable by any means, but they do provide some sorely needed bulk in this high kill speed environment. Well, in this mission they are basically invulnerable. I run 2 vans to the back of the enemy base where I can clear the subpar defenders out and slowly whittle down the infrastructure. Once the enemy tanks come, the vans do almost nothing against them, but if you remember, I only filled 11 out of 12 slots with engineers. The final one was saved for a single grenadier upgraded with a napalm grenades ability to provide constant damage over time. Engineers can also deploy guard towers where this grenadier can safely sit and burn down the defenders while the vans take the hits. Once the enemy base is clear of defenders and the silo objectives are vulnerable, I grab a van and tank force and drive over to the bonus objective, a Dynasty Tempest rig, and steal it with an engineer to make sure I get all of the meta progression credits that I need. And bam! It may have taken 20 minutes, but mission 2 actually felt appropriately difficult for this early game. How did I lose 7 units? This completely baffled me. How did I lose 4 field scouts, 2 grenadiers, and an engineer? Sure, in something as complex and precise as a Deathless run, I will occasionally miss a unit dying and need to restart. But 7 is absolutely inexcusable. So I do the entire mission all over again. This time making sure to hide all of my non-essential troops in a corner and carefully clearing out the entire map, just in case. I capture the Tempest rig bonus objective, blast to the back of the base, eliminate the silos, and at the very last moment, I do make a small mistake and lose a riot van. But I decide to finish the mission anyway. I know for a fact this was my first unit lost, and I was hyper vigilant this time. And 8 units lost, 1 more than last time. Once again, 4 field scouts, 2 grenadiers, 1 engineer, and this time, the riot van. So what the heck is going on here? Unfortunately, somebody was lazy. You see this cutscene at the beginning of the mission, where 4 field scouts and 2 grenadiers load into riot vans? They don't actually load into anything. They just disappear and the game brutally murders them off screen, and then has the audacity to count it against me. So obviously deaths and unskippable cutscenes don't count. But what about the engineer? It turns out that using engineers to capture structures also counts as a unit lost. Originally, I was simply going to ban this, but the game straight up requires you to do it multiple times or you soft lock. So instead, I decided that capturing buildings is fine, but whatever I stole must survive until the end of the mission, no matter how isolated or vulnerable it is. Unfortunately, Tempest Rising doesn't have any sort of cheat codes that would allow me to rapidly test this stuff, which means I have to learn about all of this on the fly as we go, and generally have to replay the mission multiple times to figure it all out. But this time we did confirm that on the first attempt I did beat it deathless, so I can just reload that save. The third mission is Paradropped, a commando mission. The mission normally has quite a few steps to it. First, we use the sniper Cregan to find and rescue her allies around the map. Then that squad jailbreaks some engineers, captures a war factory, and uses that to break through a strong garrison, unlock airstrikes, steal a base, and hold on against relentless aggression for 5 minutes. Once that defense is over, we breach an enemy base and get Cregan to the evac point. It is a lot of steps, and while we did learn on mission 1 we have to do them all, nobody said anything about doing them in order. After learning to snipe and sprint, we tactically skip this box because it spawns a bunch of drones that, I thought the box spawned them, but it turns out it's a mandatory trigger that spawns 4 1-minute duration drones. We have about 59 minutes left in this mission, including the mandatory 5-minute defense segment, so winning in 1 isn't really gonna happen. I've run into this issue before during Deathless Warcraft 3 Sentinels campaign, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did then. If timed units are forced on me before winning is mathematically possible, I just won't touch them. It's annoying, but required. After slowly peeling the first enemy base apart with the sniper and riot medic, all the allies are rescued, the engineers are jailbroken, and it's time to get to the machine shop. But instead, I book it straight over to this Tempest rig that harvests Tempest for the enemies and capture it. Then I bring Cregan to the bridge, which triggers an event giving me the airstrike ability. Actually, I looked away for a quarter of a second and Cregan got ran over by a tank and I had to reset, but the second time it worked perfectly. Now, I have the airstrike ability that costs $3,000 and a permanent income, meaning I can slowly and steadily clear the entire map. Normally, the big defense sequence has 3 bases producing attack waves and 2 off-map spawners sending in troops. But over the span of about half an hour, we can blow up everything. Initially, I have to be careful because airstrike planes can be shot down. But once I take the enemy power plants offline, their defensive buildings can't fire back and everything is free game. This means all I have to do is prepare for the off-map spawns. I steal 2 barracks and the machine shop with engineers, make a lot of rocket troopers and some Tempest rigs, and then capture the construction yard and start on the defense. The enemy off-field attacks are big and will no-clip through anything to get onto the field, which usually would be very annoying. But as long as I keep them moving, the enemy will no-clip straight under my Tempest rigs and crush themselves to death, leaving only a few helicopters to be shot down by my rockets. This turns what's normally an overwhelming defense segment into funny steamroller time. Noticing I don't need Cregan for any of this, I send her to the evac site at the end of the mission, through what is normally a big base, but has already been airstruck into ruins. And then this random scripted event has an allied plane airstrike this random pile of explosives right as Cregan is next to it, exploding and killing her. Thanks for the air support, buddies. We really needed it. So after reloading and doing it again, and babysitting my units so my allies don't betray me, we successfully evac, with the only losses being the engineers I used, and of course, Cregan herself, because apparently the game just murders her at the end anyway. Okay, I really do appreciate that they put a units lost tab into this game, but if they're just gonna randomly throw stuff into it every single mission, then what's the point? Come on game, throw me a bone here. During my Deathless runs, I have 2 rules of thumb that I like to follow to keep things fun and interesting. I don't like to save scum, and I don't like to spam turrets. Both of them feel like they're against the spirit of the challenge. So welcome to Retaliation, where I spam turrets, I save scum, and I have 0 regrets about it. Retaliation is an absolutely ridiculous mission. The difficulty spike is enormous, with a big ramp up in enemy difficulty that happens before we get power of our own. We start off on this high ground that is depressingly lacking in Tempest reserves. The enemy exists all over on the low ground, and there's another high ground that's inaccessible by ground forces that the enemy has a major base on. Every 2 minutes, an attack wave spawns, featuring the normal Dynasty forces and a new friend, the Matchstick Helicopter. These guys are fast, deal a ton of damage in an area, and the AI loves dive bombing them straight onto your troops. Normally, this would be dumb, because aircraft are expensive, slow to build, and have to reload at an airbase. But every single attack pops out a bunch of these for free, and the enemy is more than willing to trade them out. It's frustrating in regular play, and downright infuriating in Deathless. The infantry tank waves that supplement the matchsticks are also quite huge. We don't have a ton of money to work with, and we have to make sure that all of our unit counters are covered. To fight the air, we're given the Shield Maiden, an anti-air tank with a repair turret ability. The Shield Maiden is broken right now, and not in a good way. Its anti-air laser is pretty good, but it was recently patched so it stops running into melee against enemy ground forces and chills out at a range. But right now, it'll just ignore nearby flyers pretty often until they're manually told to attack, which means that our dedicated anti-air platform is inconsistent to say the least. It's fine if we're watching the fight like a hawk, but if there's any multitasking going on, it is a massive liability. Oh, and there are 3 entrances to our base, so these attacks can easily peel us apart. That in addition to the fact that the matchsticks can fly in from any angle that they want. Thankfully, what the enemy has in brawn, they lack in brains. 2 of the attack entrances can be walled off and 1 left open, and they will always go to the open space. But for actually defending, yeah, turrets. Having big turret energy is essential. The matchstick doesn't like attacking buildings, so it's going to run in, drop a couple shots on the turrets, and then realize there's units nearby and switch over to them. This splitting damage 50-50 is how we don't lose anything to them. So after a while of building up, cheesing the enemy with walls to only have to fight in one position, setting up a giant network of defenses to hold off the enemy air raids and tank pushes and infantry all while struggling on economy, we remember that this is not a defense mission. We have to destroy a total of 7 SAM sites across the map, all heavily defended, and more frustratingly, very close to the enemy attack wave spawns. And if the matchstick spawns on top of us, it is a straight up reset with no counterplay. So going outside isn't safe. It's cheesing time. Normally, we're supposed to clear out the bottom areas first, unlock the Skycrane flying transport, and use that to reach the high ground for 4 more SAM sites. But using a drone to carefully spot means that I can drop a support beacon on the high ground and use that build radius to make a war factory and some towers. Out of the factory, I make the Porcupine, a Dynasty artillery system that I got access to by purchasing stolen plans at the armory. With the Porcupines and laser turrets, I can start to clear out this enemy base. The reason I'm going for it first is that as soon as the low ground is cleared out, a bunch of forces spawn up here to defend, but they're absent until then. This means I can very slowly peel out what defenders do exist and take the base down. But this plan has an issue. I still die to bad luck attacks. One of the enemy attack waves spawns right on top of this base. It is an instant game over if that happens. And the attack waves are completely and totally random. They're so random that reloading a save is not deterministic. Lose to an attack and the next time it could come from a completely different angle. And frankly, that's dumb. The fact that the decision between an attack hitting my base and spawning directly on top of me is random really sucks. So I save scum. After every attack is cleaned up, I save. And then if the next attack spawns on top of me, I reload until it doesn't. I feel like I should be sorry here, but this mission is ridiculously overtuned and my anti-air unit is non-functional, so I'm gonna do what I have to do. After clearing out a majority of the enemy base, I make an engineer and use it to capture the enemy air factory to make, you guessed it, matchsticks. The enemy has no power to their static defense, so these matchsticks can swoop in and take down the enemy's SAM sites with no problem. Once all the SAMs are down, a big defense segment starts, but it turns out that being 90% turret by mass makes this a free win. And not a moment too soon. This mission took me over 5 hours to figure out and beat. It was miserable and the pain was caused 100% by random chance. With retaliation over, the most chaotic and random mission is past us, but the upcoming missions are still going to be difficult, just based off of technical and mechanical skill instead of getting good luck. The pass is a traditional ambush mission. We're in the snowy mountains, and after escorting our MCV to a base, we're supposed to intercept and destroy 3 Dynasty convoys moving through the valleys. To do this, we finally get to use flyers. The Peacekeeper is a garbage helicopter and will never be seen in this video, and the Queller is a helicopter that fires a high-powered laser before switching into a machine gun. In addition to the escorts, there are also 6 salvage vans on the map that will spawn large attacks against our base, as well as 2 barracks, machine shops, and air factories that will spawn more escorts. It's a mission that's all about controlling the enemy spawns, so counterattacks don't kill you during the escort segments. And controlling is exactly what I'm gonna do, but taking it up a notch. After reaching our base, instead of deploying my MCV instantly, I take my new Trebuchet artillery and bring them to the north. The AI doesn't build units until I've deployed my base, so there's a few preparations to be made. First, I very carefully maneuver a drone to this first spot so I can take down a salvage van and a power plant, eliminating one of the attack spawners. Then I move on to the real goal. this juicy field of power plants. I use the trebuchet to siege them, and once down, I move back, snipe 2 more power plants, and return to a defensive posture and begin the mission proper. Next, it's time to showcase one of my favorite techs in the game. I rush for the sniper commando and stealth her. As long as she doesn't attack or run into a detector, her stealth lasts forever. And on the armory, I grabbed a 50% bonus vision range for all infantry, meaning she is an absolutely incredible spotting tool that I'm going to use a lot during this campaign. She can infiltrate enemy bases and simply sit there, giving me vision of every defender, and with perfect information, I can quickly move my Queller aircraft around, specifically targeting enemy power plants, disabling the majority of their anti-air. The AI does rebuild these, but because we killed so many at the beginning, and I have a practiced, well-routed attack order, I can take down the plants faster than they're rebuilt. And I even have enough time to take down salvage vans as I'm passing them. This is a fairly action-intensive routing, but the defensive power of my trebuchets at home are enough to hold off the early assaults, and because the salvage vans are being rushed down, there aren't many things hitting me later on. Once all the attacks are offline, I can finish the other objectives at my leisure because nothing could possibly go wrong. My harvester just decided to randomly leave my base and die. This is actually a major problem in this game, not just Deathless, but in general. As soon as their nearby field is empty, harvesters will just YOLO themselves into the depths of hell to get their Tempest fix, and they very often die in the process. I try my best to babysit, but in the later stages when a lot is going on, it can be awfully hard to catch these during the chaos. So I lock myself up. I make a full wall not to keep the enemy out, but to keep my harvesters in. Truth be told, this actually happens a few times during the run, and this was just the first time. If you later on spot a base that looks like it's built as an asylum, it probably means I had to reset once due to restless harvester syndrome. But besides the harvester, things went great. My optimized opening in the early game meant I was more than prepared for the escorts, and the first 2 came near my base, so I didn't even have to go outside. For the final convoy, I was a bit inspired by my walling in the previous mission, and wanted to see if cutting off various routes could redirect the enemy's path over to my base. Then I'd never have to leave my house, just like in real life. Turns out, no. Instead, the enemy death force finds a slightly inconvenient barrier and just completely gives up, stacking into a giant pile. It isn't as funny as making a detour like there was road maintenance ahead, but if they're gonna pile up, then I can end the mission with a bang. And then send in a couple Quellers to finish things off because the airstrike didn't do enough damage. Pull Apart That Base is another commando mission, and is perhaps the first straightforward, no-nonsense mission. We start off on a little island with a small squad of units including the new Scrambler, a glass cannon rocket launcher tank. After the engineer trades his flesh for the certainty of steel, becoming one with the bridge, the majority of the mission is a lot of clearing. We also unlock our next commando unit, the Drone Assassin. And getting him really makes me appreciate the cultural variety they took with the commandos in this game. The sniper is Irish, the comms officer is Australian, and the drone assassin is Florida man. Don't let his accent fool you. Only Florida man would take 2 drones and strap buzzsaws onto them as his weapon of choice. This absolute legend one-shots basically everything with his panhandle predator drones. Unfortunately, the drones are made of drone, so we can't use them. The rest of the mission is super smooth though. Commandos and the riot van can tank while the scramblers deal damage from behind, and the rest of the forces take a nap in the back. Eventually there's a small event where the bridge gets bombed, forcing you to attack through the big enemy defenses. But I just shoot down the plane that drops the bomb and walk through a perfectly functional bridge. This mission was super simple in a way that we'll just never see again, so I'm savoring it for as long as I can. Mission number 7 is Public Relations, and it's an interesting one. While on the surface this is a rescue mission, the real core mechanic is that we start in a giant open area where the enemy hits from all sides, and we have to defend both ourselves and this hospital. Open areas are one of the scariest possible things in this sort of run because it creates chaotic environments where things are easy to miss. I ended up spending a lot of time grinding out the optimal build order for this mission just to control the enemy. First off, I blow the bridge to the right, reducing the attack angles by 1. This doesn't stop the enemy, but it does redirect them. Then I build a wall with my buildings pretty far forward. The starting attacks come fast and hard, and there's no good way to get actual walls up quickly. I also make a second barracks because you can garrison infantry into barracks and they shoot out, which has surprised literally every person I have told this to. Oh, and we also have a new unit called the Drone Mauler. He's got drone in his name, so he's going to be hiding in a corner until the end of the mission. after picking up a couple money crates. With the wall up, the first attack comes from 2 angles, and things go well enough that I can expand. Below the bridge is an expansion, and then I blow the bridge to keep it safe. And then I use clairvoyance to know about this dropship attack. Oh hey look, drones actually did something for once. And for the final touches, I wall off the hospital and this western ramp and grab a sky crane transport and use it to blast the second bridge across the river. This means that the only valid attack path for both the western enemy base and the base across the river are from the same direction. Instead of my base having 5 entrances, it now has 1. I don't get hit by less stuff, but it is controlled, which gives me the safety to tech to the Condor Bomber. This unit costs a lot of intel. Not only does it have a high upfront intel cost, but it also has a cloak ability that burns through it. Unfortunately, the easiest source of intel for this faction is, you guessed it, using drones. So instead, I have to make a bunch of data cores which have a small passive trickle, and it costs far too much money. I do not recommend this, it is bad. But you gotta do what you gotta do, and while the Condor looks kinda lame, it does about 1 billion trillion damage in an area, so I'm willing to do some stupid stuff to get him out. With the large intel trickle, I can brawl with the enemy, and whenever a Condor gets weak, I smash the cloak button and return it to base. Stealth detectors are rare in this game, and mostly in the form of structures, so if I snipe the construction yard first, then I'm at very low risk. The first group of captured scientists are rather well defended, and it does take about 10 minutes of bombing runs to clear everything out. But the high pressure against the enemy is also killing their attack waves in the process, so it keeps me safe at home. Once the area is secure, I grab the prisoners with the sky crane from earlier and bring them back to the hospital. And the hospital didn't take all of my money, which greatly confused me as an American. Now that the first rescue is done, it's time to fight through the significantly better defended base that forgot to put defenses behind the prison, so you can just fly in and grab them. It's not even dangerous. There's also a bonus objective where the GDF Council interrupts us to request the rescue of some militia members on the right-hand side of the map. So I fly in and grab them too with no combat needed. As my transports fly home, I sit there wondering if the hospital actually kills these poor souls when I drop them off, and if it will count against me on the score screen. Turns out, no! European healthcare really is something else. Unfortunately, the bonus objective does kill off the militia members, and I don't like that. Frankly, I don't trust the GDF Council. They always give off evil vibes, so I reload. I bring the militia members home, but don't drop them off at the rendezvous site, and finish the mission with 0 losses. The bonus money means nothing compared to your lives, little dudes. During the last mission, you may have been thinking, Grant, if you're having such issues generating intel, why don't you just reset your doctrine so that lasers mark enemies? You could even get the thing that makes marking attacks get bonus range. It's a great combo. And the answer is, I would love to, but I currently have -3 doctrine resets. I don't know what causes this bug, but before this run, I had all my doctrine allocations and resets for specific missions and strategies planned out, and instead the game has just decided that free will is an illusion and I will have 6 points in mobility until the end of time. This bug hits the armory too, but that system keeps you flush with cash, so the resets aren't as necessary. Which is good, because I have a cool setup for the next mission. The ancient basin is very simple. Clear to the center, set up a base, and defend for 15 minutes. There are a couple objectives on the way that give reinforcements, but I decide to leave the big area damage trebuchets a bit behind, so I can make sure to mark every possible enemy with my sentinels to build up a lot of intel before the defense starts. Once I get to the temple, I notice the next phase doesn't actually begin until I drop the scientists off. So I have a look around. There are 2 incredibly well-defended death bases that guard the attack spawn points, as well as some troops guarding what will eventually become bonus objectives that have to be captured with engineers. So I take the time out to clear the bonuses to make my life a little bit easier later on. Everything is looking good, so I drop off the scientists, and then this happens.
All right, Commander. The Dynasty is on to you now. You don't have long. Get some defenses up and give the archaeologists time to work.
Unit is under attack.
Comms rate, picking you up. Roger that.
Unit lost.
The plane that automatically drops reinforcements for me flies straight into the enemy base and gets shot down after delivering the troops. I can't take a base on this mission until I've killed the uber death bases that are designed to never be attacked. The northern base is where this plane got shot down, so I opt to clear that. The main path involves a large number of defenses at the top of a ramp, and I have no high ground vision. It's actually impossible to fight up here without a loss. However, there is a second entrance that is only incredibly well defended instead of impossibly well defended. And this is where the idiom that plans are pointless but planning is everything rings true. Because I farmed an absolutely astronomical amount of intel early, and now I can dump it into healing turrets, allowing me to glacially crawl through the enemy base. Mind you, this base does make things. It isn't one of those missions where the AI is inactive until the building starts. The only one who can't make stuff here is me. With the trebuchets in good positions, I can deal with most of the threats, but they do have porcupine missile launchers. If they fire off a full volley on any one unit, it straight up dies. So I have to bait out partial volleys and run away and then eliminate them before they fully recharge. But eventually, I managed to knock down the artillery, destroy the production, and remove the power. Now I can get my reinforcements without the plane dying. But I had a thought. I've come this far, so what if the other base is actually the same player? Then they would be depowered too, and I could charge straight into the front. And it turns out, yeah, they absolutely are. With power, this base would have been truly impossible to fight no matter what, but without power, it's just a lame little outpost. So now that I am 45 minutes into a 15-minute defense mission, I figure it's time to actually start. Because I had thought a lot about this mission before it went all topsy-turvy, I was incredibly prepared for the defense. But now I can make them even better because I can slap fortifications straight in front of the enemy spawns. The core idea is to use the Dynasty Assault Gunner, who I unlocked via stolen tech at the armory. This, combined with the Tempest ammo upgrade, makes every rifle shot apply the Tempest charge debuff to vehicles, which reduces move and attack speed. As a result, the actual defense portion is a joke. I used 2 engineers to capture the bonuses and let my impenetrable wall of barracks garrisoned with assault gunners hold the line. I really like this combo because it uses a Dynasty unit with a GDF upgrade. The cross-faction synergies in this game are really strong. The devs clearly put a decent bit of time thinking about how to make the cool synergies appear. Unfortunately, I can't do the Assault Gunner Tempest Charge combo ever again because the remainder of the enemies in the campaign are going to be immune to the debuff. But it works great here. Throughout the entire 15-minute defense, nothing goes wrong, except once. I get cutscene cheesed. Tempest Rising has a very frustrating mechanic with cutscenes. Whenever one starts, everything becomes invulnerable, but they retain their move and attack commands. In my case, this bonus objective that spawns an MCV happened, and during that, an attack wave spawned. This let the enemy flamethrowers get right up to my garrison barracks, and then once their invulnerability ended, they melted the gunners inside. This is a frustrating issue, but I knew this was going to be a problem going into the run, and I'm glad that it took so long to show up. So when redoing the defense, I make sure to stand outside for that one fight, and then easy peasy, everything is done, no problem. And look, the 15-minute time defense mission didn't even take an hour in game. In challenge runs like these, there are generally 3 different types of roadblocks that absolutely spike the difficulty. There's randomness, such as mission number 4, strict timers, where the game forces you to go when you just need a breather, and annihilation via brute force. Welcome to the timer difficulty spike, because Ancient Power is the new record for hardest deathless mission. Sorry Retaliation, your reign was short but not sweet. After a short walking section where the Dynasty are retreating, we meet and greet our new enemies for the remainder of the campaign, the Veti. Eventually, they're going to become the game's 3rd playable faction, but absolutely not in the state that they are right now because Veti forces are absolutely overpowered. Their damage and durability is off the charts, and I'm not a fan of uncharted territory. The first roadblock in the mission is this defense segment. It is absolute chaos. We have an AI ally who's an idiot and gets his stuff killed. Then mid-mission, he gives us control of these forces and we need to hold off the base for a few minutes while being sieged from all sides. And we're stuck with an army of incredibly vulnerable infantry, can't make defenses or anything techie, and can't lose the base. We have to hide the drones that they force on us and somehow beat anti-infantry AoE units with grenadiers, all while saving up money for a later section or we die. And we have to prepare for the escort that happens right after this. This mission is intended to showcase the absolute chaos of engaging and learning about the Veti, and they completely nailed it, and it destroyed my soul. I spent almost 3 hours figuring out this one section alone. The escort after the defense section relocates us to a base in the south, so I landed on a strategy that involves clearing the first couple attack waves at the top while sending the liability units to the base in the south. then using engineers to deploy empty guard towers to the north to slow the enemy down while holding the south open for the escort. Once I had the strategy down, it only took about 10 tries to execute properly, and
Data transfer complete. Local files deleted.
sure, I'll take it. At this point, I am multiple hours into attempts, and I've advanced past what normally would be the 5-minute mark. Yay! Now it's time for the rest of the onslaught. The remaining mission is relentless. The defense is hard, enemies swing in from random locations, and they warp in from normally inaccessible angles, including right next to Tempest fields, making expanding a no-go. Most of the time, I can hang on, but once again, the invulnerability cutscene system strikes me hard, with a wave of melee enemies using the free time to walk straight up to my army, and then my trebuchets killing my own units as a result. Between the multi-angled attacks and warp-in harassment, I can barely sneak some units out to do the many objectives like bashing bases, stopping expansions, and investigating the area. When fighting the Dynasty, we always had the range advantage. While they hit harder and had more durability, I could always get that first strike off in order to even things up. But with the forces I have available and being unable to change doctrines, I no longer have a range, durability, mobility, or firepower advantage. My units are just worse than the Veti, and on top of that, I can no longer apply the Tempest Overload debuff because the Veti are immune. It is the worst of all worlds. And that makes the final death push against the enemy base an absolute slog. It's an artillery slow push where the enemy has artillery with more range. My only option is to jostle back and forth, try to deny vision, and then jump on top of their longest range forces, all while making sure to be perfectly positioned for the attack waves that come, while simultaneously defending the warp-in assaults at home. Ancient Power took me over 6 hours of attempts to figure out. The number of moving parts that all have to be addressed perfectly at the right time, combined with a series of tight timers, is ridiculous. So when I finally finished the mission and saw on the score screen that I had 8 units lost without using an engineer, I was ready for it. Of course the insane mission has an insane score screen. The first 3 are these losers who I don't even own. It was easy to figure them out because it said I lost a comms rig and this was the only one that existed in the entire mission. And then the other 5 are weird. After the first defense segment, there's a cutscene where an MCV starts moving out. And during that cutscene, the game actually steals a sentinel and 4 field scouts from you and gives them back to the ally, counting them as units lost. I've never seen an RTS steal units from you before like this. It was very odd. But during the 3 hours of figuring out the defense segment, I had noticed this happening, meaning all 8 units are cutscene related shenanigans. And good riddance, if I had to do this again, I would have actually cried. Oh, and at the beginning of the mission, a bunch of guys load into 2 riot vans and it doesn't count as units lost, so mission 2 had no excuse. The penultimate mission is the fall of Alexandria, and just like Ancient Power, it is complete chaos. But this time, the enemies are significantly stronger. The warp-ins are more aggressively in our face, and we have a bunch of escorting to do. If the last mission was bad, this is the same, but far, far worse. So let's start at the beginning, where normally you drive a bunch of riot vans to save these troops by blasting the enemies with drones. Normally you don't even think about it, just a cinematic opening to get a base. Instead, because every enemy ground unit is splash damage anti-air, I have to empty the vans, speed over, do a hot pickup of the small militia group, retreat back, and then body pull 1 or 2 Veti tanks or flyers at a time and eliminate them while using the pilot repair training armory upgrade to partially heal between pulls. Then after 10 minutes of this, everything is finally clear so I can get my base. Or at least, that's what I thought initially. Going back and reviewing the footage reveals something fairly subtle. This drone operator, who I do not control, sends his drone over to the enemies and then proceeds to give me control and lose the drone instantly. And so instead of being able to just play the mission, I guess I'm gonna go grind out this for the next hour to figure it out. Eventually, what I figured out is that I could use the sidebar ability that disables vehicles in order to save this drone. However, it requires intel, and we can't get any intel at the beginning of the mission because the only people that we fight are these enlightened who do not give intel when marked and killed. Or at least I didn't think so. Thankfully, I just happened to have spec'd into the doctrine that when marking expires gives you 1 intel. So what I was able to do is use the very brief amount of time before the first cutscene starts to change the orders of all of my troops to stop running forward, move all the way back, then get sentinels to move to marking rounds, shoot each one of these enlightened once, and then wait for the debuff to expire, get a bunch of intel, do Do this repeatedly until I have 30 intel and then stack everything up, send all of my troops in at the same time, then use his ability to manually control the drone to move it to safety, then use the hotkey so I can very rapidly disable all of the aircraft while they're going after the drone because they YOLO, they run into a bunch of my drones, I have 12 seconds to kill off the aircraft, then I have to run all the drone operators away from the tanks, all while making sure nobody that are actually fighting these other tanks die, and then I can pull everybody back and we live. All this for a single drone. I'm tired, boss. I knew the difficulty spike of the Veti would be real, but even the smallest encounters are progressing at a glacial speed. I need a break. And thankfully, I have one. The caravan that I need to escort to the evacuation point? Sorry, road's closed. Yeah, this just works. The enemy still attacks, but none of the chaotic events start until the escort is finished. So I take the opportunity to build the ultimate death army. I get Quellers and Shield Maidens, Riot Vans, and lots of Trebuchets. I max out, clear every existing unit on the map, and build loads of defenses, and then open the way for the escort, whose driver, I guess, fell asleep waiting because I have to push them to the airbase. But after that, everything is fairly clean. The Veti are still monsters, and it takes a maxed out army supported by static defense to clean them clearly, but the combination of knowing when and where every event will spawn beforehand and starting off with the perfect army means that everything is approachable. Even at the end, when the War Ender spawns who can basically one-shot anything, we can take it down with little issue. So if Mission 4 was the apex of randomness, and Mission 9 the epitome of difficulty via time limits, it's only fitting that the final mission, Heart of Glass, is referring to my heart, which is about to be punched repeatedly by the most overwhelming force imaginable. This mission is designed to be all kinds of punishing. After a short no-build section, we get 5 minutes to build up before the Veti begin all-out assaults. We're expected to hold our base while taking a second and eventually a third, each of which gets hit by progressively stronger attacks from a total of 7 entrances, in addition to having to shore up other angles from flyers. In the end, every angle is being pressured while an unending tide of Veti swarm us. It's chaos, it's brutal, and it is the perfect recipe for units to die. But the overpowered Veti aren't the biggest problem. Defending half the map at once isn't the biggest problem. Not even the 4 freaking War Enders we have to fight at the end are the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that this mission constantly rewards you for completing objectives with Paradropped reinforcements, also known as unusable garbage that will take around 100 population when all added together. So it's time for the hardest mission, where we don't have access to half of our roster because of drones, and we have to figure out how to defend a landmass the size of Texas with half an army. To beat this, nothing is off limits. The beginning is simple, clearing with a sniper and rescuing allies. Now we have the Riot Medic, Comms Officer, and Sniper available, which is a very powerful start. And if we're going to start with 3 commandos, we might as well do a bit of infiltration before the mission gets going. We're supposed to steal this Dynasty base later on, but right now the goal is to open a hole in the side, clear out some defenders, and steal a nearby Tempest rig for harvesting. Near that base, we rescue some friends, also known as wasted population who are going to sit in the back forever, making us sad. After checking that the second Dynasty base is in fact armed to the teeth and impenetrable, it's time to start the core of the mission. We place down our MCV and now have 5 minutes to build up. Having the stolen Tempest rig means that we're instantly mining and started this segment with 10,000 credits instead of 5,000. It's not a massive bonus, but it does help out, and we need it. The Veti attacks when the timer hits 0 are strong, but more importantly, the AI drops a wave of friendly reinforcements right into the middle of the action. So I need a lot of cash to build proper fortifications, not only to hold the enemy off, but to protect these idiots as they're trying to paradrop into a blender, only to stash them in my corner of useless people. After the first defense, the Veti will constantly send attacks that need to be repelled, but we're fairly safe. Now comes the objective to steal the Dynasty construction yard in the middle of the map, and a bonus to knock out some power plants opening the back door to said base. We are not doing this. Instead, we're striking at the Veti. The Veti don't really have a base yet, just a few random buildings scattered about, mostly towers. All of their attacks are currently being warped in, so we can't disrupt them much. But we can use our specialist force to take down a few key anti-air towers for later. Once the towers are down, we can sneak into the hole we made earlier in the side of the Dynasty base, clear out all the defending units without touching the defensive structures, and leaving the gate at the back powered. All while making a massive army of trebuchets, shield maidens, and most importantly, sky cranes. I then bring a sky crane full of engineers and specialists to clear out the missile silo that we need for later, leave an engineer there, and then start working on that base's defending units. I load 3 sky cranes with trebuchets and move them to the right hand side of the map, 1 sky crane alone into the back of what will eventually become the Veti base, and stealthily drop my army into the back of the first Dynasty base, making sure to not attack anything. All of this while we're constantly holding off Veti attacks against our base. The reason that we're making so many preparations here is that once we secure the first Dynasty base, a lot of things are going to happen very quickly. Aggression ramps up exponentially, the Dynasty gets another base that starts building attack waves against us, and 3 bonuses spawn on the map that all send relentless waves until destroyed. Additionally, the base on the left that we need to take for the final objective starts getting blasted by the enemy and can't take the heat for long because they don't have units anymore. So I set up a lot. Because in addition to all of this, the reinforcements are a big problem. The bonuses that spawn around the map send attacks that are eventually overwhelming. But when cleared, they paradrop a lot of wasted supply, and it's often dropped not somewhere safe, but instead straight into the action. So I can't survive for long because of these attacking bonus spawns, and I can't kill them because it's too big of a liability. So my only option is to set up a lot of dominoes, prepare for them to fall extremely rapidly, and then execute every part of the exceedingly convoluted plan perfectly. So to beat Tempest Rising Deathless, it is as simple as this. First, steal the Dynasty Conyard. This will steal all of the base's buildings and spawn a bunch of Veti attacks, while the engineer channels queue up the trebuchets and shield maidens to run in and siege both entrances of the base. The cutscene invulnerability will help them get there and defend. This will spawn a plane that drops off about 20 population of useless reinforcements. As the plane drops, move over to the engineer at the top left and start capturing the missile silo, then move back to the Dynasty base, grab the dropped units, and send them to the back where the Veti attacks will spawn but conveniently not be able to get in because the laser gate was never opened. As the missile silo is captured, 3 shield generators in addition to a Titanic Veti base will begin attacking all 3 sides, and 3 bonus objectives will spawn that start sending attack waves, and a Dynasty base will spawn that starts making attacks, and attacks spawn directly on the left hand side and start attacking a sky crane full of engineers and specialists. Call in an airstrike on the farthest generator using the lone sky crane at the top. The bombers won't get shot down because we cleared the anti-air turrets earlier, and then whip back to the sky crane that's under attack from the warp and attack on the left side and cloak it. The Stolen Dynasty static fence should have cleared out a majority of these attackers now. Check on the middle base to make sure that it isn't being broken. Meanwhile, the trebuchets on the right hand side should have cleared the second generator, so pack them up into transports and start moving them to the left base. Start fortifying the base's bottom entrances and wall off the top and sell all of the static defense, so just like mission 4, the AI will only go to the open zone. Move all the specialists to the open defensive area, drop the trebuchets that should be arriving now and siege them, get the sky cranes heading towards the mid base to find more trebuchets, and use a sky crane at the top to target another airstrike from the final shield generator while you scoop up more trebuchets from the middle and ferry them over to the left. Oh, and make sure to check on the right hand base because the enemy has not stopped attacking during all of this. With the final shield generator destroyed, we're going to face a constant death wave for the final 4 minutes, including supplemental forces from the bonuses that we didn't manage to clear. So set up that second sky craned group of trebuchets, start selling off old infrastructure to afford more defenses, and micro the specialists to take the hits, and of course we remember to ferry a few shield maidens over too, so get them on the right hand side of the final base and prepare for the flyers. And now comes the hard part. Because there simply isn't enough army supply to defend all of the bases, we had to take trebuchets from the center, so it is being cracked. But we didn't take all of them, so move the remaining ones over to the construction yard to tank. This base cannot die because we have a bunch of useless supply hanging out over there. And then make sure to swing back to the main fight because the war enders are here. These will one-shot us, and we cannot kill them fast enough to prevent them from attacking. So instead, grab the sniper, bait out the lasers, and then use some dropship micro to animation cancel the blast repeatedly until the war enders die. Remember that if they fire once, we lose. While doing this, make sure the shield maidens are targeting the pyramids but not taking damage, drop repair drones, fight 2 more war enders, and as the final strike breaks the northern wall, pull everything back and wait for the timer to hit 0. It's just that easy. And with that, we have confirmed that it is in fact possible to beat Tempest Rising on insane difficulty without losing a unit.